Now Namo Buddha, everyone. Good morning. Hope you had a good breakfast. One second, let me just. It's still a little too dark here. Okay. So, um, we've been exploring, discussing um, the practice of how to cultivate patience. So, in the previous sessions, we've identified what are the bonds or the fetters that keep us bound in samsara. So we'd identified there are the three root poisons, which are craving, then hatred, and delusion. And we'd covered some part of how craving acts as a root driver for us to be trapped, bounded in samsara. And then we started our discussion on how hatred acts as the second root poison, which keeps us trapped in samsara. So, in the previous session, we discussed what are the flaws of hatred or anger. Uh, and For today's session, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss what are the different techniques to cultivate the antidote to anger, which is patience, tolerance. So, what are the different steps in order to cultivate patience and tolerance to deal with anger and hatred? So, before we initiate the discussion, I think, like we do for every session, let's do a short meditation. Uh, we usually do a mindfulness meditation. So, just observing our mind, we'll use our breath as the object of focus, and we'll also uh, then, you know, go through the steps that we need to um, engage in to be mindful of where our mind is. Um, So let's do that, and then we'll also do a short motivation setting meditation. Yeah. Okay, so all of you make sure that you have a proper posture. Keep your back erect, shoulders straight, arms relaxed, and right palm in the left palm, and palms resting in your lap just below your navel, and thumbs, the tip of the thumbs touching each other, and your eyes either half open or fully closed. Chin slightly tucked in, tongue, the tip of the tongue just resting behind the upper row of teeth. And then just take a moment to just park all the chatter in your mind. Just bring its attention to the subject that we're going to discuss today. And then turn the focus of your mind to your in breath. Observe which nostril it's passing through. And then track it all the way from the nostril as it passes through the throat, chest, and as it reverses into the out breath. And then track the out breath as it passes through the chest, through the throat, nostrils, and as it is expelled out. Keep track of the entire body of your breath. Don't lose track. You'll also observe that as you breathe in and breathe out, there's movement in your chest. So just observe the movement of your chest. When your chest rises, just note it as rising, rising. When it falls, note it as falling, falling. You would do the same with your abdomen also. Just notice the movement of your abdomen. Just note it's rising and falling. If your mind wanders away from the object of focus, keep track of where it is. If it's thinking about something, just note it as thinking, thinking. If you're meeting someone, just note it as meeting, meeting. If you're seeing something, just note it as seeing, seeing. If you hear something, note it as hearing, hearing. If you register any kind of discomfort in any part of the body, if there's some stiffness somewhere, note it as stiff, stiff. If there's some warmth that you experience somewhere, note it as warm, warm. If the discomfort doesn't fade away when you observe it, when you note it, and it persists, and if you think that there's not something to be done, needs to be done to relieve it, then make a note of the mind that wants to relieve the discomfort as wanting, wanting. And then if you choose to act on that want, that wish, and you initiate some action, just note every moment of that action. If you're stretching your arm, your leg, or straightening your back, whatever it is, just keep a note of the moments. So when your mind stays away from the object of focus, use the vigilance aspect of your mind to keep track of it. And then remind the mind using the mindfulness aspect about the object of focus and bring it back to the object of focus, which is the breath in our case. And observe the in breath and the out breath. Now, with this mind being concentrated, let's use that concentrated mind to generate a good motivation for the session. We'll do that using the Bodhicitta prayer. So just reflect on the Bodhicitta prayer. It says, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a completely enlightened Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, okay, let me just share some material that I've prepared for the session. Okay, hope it's visible on your screens. So, yeah, this is what we've been discussing so far. So, we've seen how the Buddha says that there are three blemishes uh, that we need to be aware of. So, just like the weeds, if not controlled, they become the bane of fields, and nothing productive comes out of the fields. Similarly, lust is the bane of mankind, and hence, somebody who is free of lust, if you make offerings to such a person, such a being, then that offering yields abundant fruit. So, trina doshani kshetrani raga dosha iyam prajaha tasmadhi vitarageshu dattam bhavati mahaphalam. And similarly, weeds are the bane of fields, hatred is the bane of mankind. So, the second root poison, hatred or dvesh. Hatred is the bane of mankind, and hence to those rid of hatred, those who are free of hatred, what is given yields abundant fruit in the form of merit. So, trina doshani kshetrani dvesha dosha ayam prajaha tasmati vigata dvesheshu dattam bhavati mahaphalam. And the third root poison is delusion or moha. So, weeds are the bane of fields, delusion is the bane of mankind. Hence, to those rid of delusion, what is given yields abundant fruit. So, trina doshani kshetrani moha doshaha iyam prajaha tasmadhi vigata moheshu dattam bhavati mahaphalam. So, these are the three root poisons that we need to be aware of, which at the moment they run uncontrolled in our mental continuum. Yeah. Even during the meditation, uh, we often experience some sort of discomfort when we are sitting quiet, uh, and we are kind of forced to do something that we're not habituated to doing. And it very naturally, after a little while, kind of leads to some sort of mental discomfort. And we start amplifying any kind of physical discomfort that we may be experiencing while we meditate. So it all starts with, being relatively impatient with these kind of discomforts, and that discomfort, if we do not control it, you know, it could take on more serious forms. So the discomfort provides the fuel uh, to generate what is called mm, uh, anger. And the anger could then take on more serious forms like belligerence. Then you have resentment, spite, harmfulness, hatred, and so on and so forth. So it's very important to note when this discomfort arises. Yeah. And what is the reaction or response to this discomfort when it arises in a mental continuum? Often, these minor discomforts that arise when we are meditating, they kind of fade away when you observe them. But even when they persist, we should have a very measured kind of response to relieve that discomfort. Instead of being agitated about it, often we get a little agitated, uh, and that annoyance then can become a little more serious. So when we generate that kind of response, what it does, it reinforces our tendency to react in similar manner to similar stimuli in the environment when we are out of meditation also. So all that path of response, that reaction kind of is initiated, uh, as you all know, by a mental factor called volition or intention. So when you're meditating, uh, it's very important for you to be able to isolate and identify what this volition or want or intention is. And if you get into this habit of identifying intention, even when you're out of meditation, you'll uh, find it easy to identify what kind of volition is being generated, what kind of intention is being generated in your mind, and what kind of karmic process, process of response would be initiated, triggered by that volition. So, volition is a mental factor. We discussed that in the previous session. So, we'd also seen how there are different distinct kinds of minds that arise in a mental continuum. So, it seen that broadly you could divide classify minds as being uh, either of a cognitive nature or an affective nature, either being main mind or a mental factor, or being sensorial in nature, or being mental or conceptual. So either being perceptions, or even if it is a cognitive state of mind, it could be either a perception or an inference. So can you give me an example of an inferential mind that may have arisen in your mental continuum while you were meditating? Anyone? Any example of an inferential mind? Anyone?
Maybe
Or it's
hearing
possible
some.
that you're very focused on the object of focus, which is the breath, in which case it didn't stray away from the object of focus, and there was no opportunity, scope for any inference to rise in your mental continuum. It's possible, but assuming that there was a moment of distraction, your mind kind of strayed away from the object of focus, then it would have veered away from that object, and some other kind of mind would have arisen in the place of the mind that should be observing the breath. So what are those kind of minds that arose in your mind streams? Anyone? Yeah, Alice, yeah.
I heard some noises in the house, and so I began first identifying what activities are going on in the house, and then kind of fabulating on top, like adding my reaction to what is going on in the house, whether I'm pleased about it, displeased about it, whatever, all those things.
Right. So yeah, so a lot of discursive thoughts were triggered by this stimulus, where you noted, recognized as sound. The sound itself, the mind that recognizes the sound is an ear consciousness, and on the basis of that becomes the first moment which initiates a sequence of uh, conceptual minds, yeah, which then distract you or take you away from the object of focus. So, for a moment of mind to arise, it needs at least two causes. One is a previous moment of mind, which kind of draws it towards that object, and then uh, the either the mental organ or the sense organ that creates that mind. So two causes for a mental mind, for a conceptual mind, for a sensorial mind, sensorial awareness. There are three causes that are necessary. One is the external object. Then you have the sense organ, and then a previous moment of mind that you know, drives the mind towards that object. So in your case, it's the sound which acted, the mind that realized, the a consciousness that realized the sound, that triggered a sequence of conceptual thoughts. So that was the first cause, and then along with it, the mental sense power then triggered a conceptual mind, and then there was a sequence of mental consciousnesses. Uh, any other distinct minds? Madhvi, you had something to share? Yeah? You wanted to share something?
Yeah, I mean, my mind just wandered to lunch, and
Lunch. That's the reason I asked you. I hope you had a good breakfast. We,
no,
we have
I
still
did, but
1.5 hours.
that's I did, but that doesn't stop me from thinking about lunch and what I need to do to get it on the table for everyone, and and I should not forget to do this and not forget to do that. Before I, of course, caught it and came back to the breath.
Okay, good. So these are distracting thoughts. So conceptual minds, yeah, conceptual minds. Uh, yeah, you had. I don't know your name. SK. Oh, what's your name? Sorry.
Yeah, my name is Sangeeta, Venerable. Yeah.
Sangeeta. Okay, yeah, Sangeeta. You wanted to
Yeah.
share something.
So for me, yesterday was Rakhi. So, we had my brother and, a get together. So all those images were coming into your mind, all that
Uh-huh.
happened. And some judgments came up about, people who were there and, good and bad, and then, I got into this thing saying, then I was judging myself saying, oh, I shouldn't judge them. They are the way they are. So all this
Okay.
was coming back. And then I suddenly remembered I have to come back to my breath.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the judging mind can be a problem also. Then it can trigger all kinds of karmic paths. Uh, if virtuous, then fine. If wholesome, fine. If not, then it can create problems. But these are all examples of thought consciousnesses, right? Conceptual minds. Um, did you?
Venerable,
Yeah,
Venerable,
yeah.
you said two pauses for the conceptual mind, which is the previous moment and
The mental sense power.
okay,
The
okay.
mental sense power. So, like for a visual input to be registered, there need to be three causes: a previous moment of mind, which kind of brings the mind's attention to that object, the external object itself, and then the eye sense power. So, similarly, for the other sense awarenesses, also three causes are required. Yeah. So, for the mental mind, just two: the previous moment of mind and the mental sense power. Yeah. So, did you register other forms of perceptions while you were? What was the predominant perception that you registered when you were meditating? The dominant perception. These, what you just shared with me, were the conceptual thoughts that distracted you from the object of focus. But what was the dominant perception that you could register?
Can we say about the quality of my meditation?
Yeah. Okay.
I was perceiving whether I'm a good meditator. Of course, that's a judgment again, but the perception about the meditation practice itself, is that the way to?
Okay, that would be a concept, yeah. That would be a thought
Okay,
consciousness.
concept. Okay.
Okay, so examples of direct perceptions. So when you're observing the breath itself is a what kind of object is it? Is it a visual object? Is it a auditory object? Is it a smell object? Is it a touch tactile object? What kind of object is it?
Tactile.
It's a tactile object, right? So when you register the breath, you're registering the sensation that you experience. Yeah. So that, assuming that you spend most of the time observing the breath, you would be distracted for some time, but then you bring your attention back to the breath. So as uh, the dominant perception that you were registering in the meditation was the perception of this tactile sensation. Yeah. And you could have heard some sounds. Even that could be example of a direct perception. Um, or you could Madhavi was talking about preparing lunch. Maybe uh, you smell something from the kitchen. So that would be an example of a sensory awareness that is sensing smell objects. Yeah. So we have examples of direct perceptions and conceptions. An example of inference, like we had discussed in the previous session, would be if you hear a sound, uh, then the sound, uh, the ear consciousness that hears the sound, becomes a cause for you to infer the presence of a certain visual object, for example. Let's say you like for example, right now I can hear some chirping in the background. um, so I hear the chirping sound, and on the basis of the chirping sound uh, and uh, the memory, from memory I know that this chirping sound is associated with a sentient being called a certain kind of bird, let's say bird A. uh, and on the basis of these two kinds of minds, um, I infer that there's a bird maybe about 10 meters away from my room. Uh, so I haven't seen the bird, but I have the knowledge of the existence of the bird. And that's a valid knowledge. Yeah. Assuming my senses are right. Yeah. It's possible that, I could be hallucinating and I hear a sound which does not exist. In which case, what kind of consciousness would that be? The mind that realizes the presence of a bird. If I'm hallucinating, what kind of mind would that be? That is not a valid mind, definitely, right?
Deluded mind.
It's a wrong consciousness, a deluded wrong consciousness. Yes, because the object that it is apprehending does not exist. Yeah, so that's an example of a mind that gets at an object which does not exist. But let's say it's a valid consciousness. My ear sense power is right. It's not compromised, and I hear a sound, and from my memory I invoke this relationship between that sound and a bird, and then I know that there's a bird about 10 meters away from my room. That knowledge, that mind that knows the existence of the bird, is an inferential mind, inferential cognition. It's a very important kind of mind because that is the stepping stone for you to cultivate direct perception into objects like impermanence, emptiness, and other subtle phenomena. So we start off by discussing a lot of reasons, uh, and then, like you've seen, some of you have visited our campus, so you've seen us debating in the debate courtyard. Uh, so instead of doing a debate with another person, you do an internal debate. So you invoke those reasons, see if those are valid reasons. And then there are certain kind of criteria that a reason has to meet to be considered to be a valid reason. And then go through that process, and you can infer uh, that phenomena are impermanent, or phenomena are empty of inherent existence. But that starts with this, realizing some science, and then analyzing whether those signs are valid reasons. And then on the basis of those valid reasons, then you come to an inference that phenomena are devoid of an inherent existence, or phenomena are not permanent. So inferential cognitions, and after you set up an inferential cognition, you develop that further, it becomes more refined. And at a certain point in your meditation practice, they're transformed into a direct perception, where you have a direct perception of phenomena like impermanence and emptiness. So that is a goal. I mean, you need to be able to cultivate this inferential cognitions. First of all, identify reasons, and then validate whether those reasons are good reasons or valid reasons or not. And then based on those reasons and signs, then you cultivate inferences, and then meditate on those inferences till a point that you can actually have a direct perception of the object that that inference is getting at. And then we also saw there is another category division of mind, main mind and mental factors. So the main mind, in the case of, let's say you're meditating and you feel a breeze, cool breeze brushing against your skin. So you register the sensation, that is the main mind. And if it is hot in your room, then that cool breeze leads to a pleasant feeling. If it is cold, already cold in the room, that cool breeze will lead to what kind of feeling? It will lead to a unpleasant feeling. So that feeling is an aspect of mind that accompanies the main mind, which is realizing, recognizing the sensation of that touch. So that is a mental factor. That feeling is called a mental factor, whereas the mind that is registering the sensation is the main mind. So every main mind has some kind of accompanying mental factor going along with it. Feeling is an ever-present mental factor. It goes along with all main minds. And based on feeling, you could generate a wish to do something to, possess the object that is giving you pleasant feeling, or you'd want to do something to separate yourself from the object that is giving an unpleasant feeling. So that is initiated by the mental factor called volition. So volition is also a mental factor. And then as you, let's say you notice something that is causing you some stress, so that is registered as an unpleasant feeling. Could be physical, could be mental. And then the source of that feeling, you kind of generate some sort of an irritation towards that source, some sort of annoyance towards that source. And then that annoyance takes on the form of anger towards that source. It could be animate, it could be inanimate. Either could be animate, inanimate. So that anger is an emotive or a cognitive or an affective state of the mind. So there's the cognitive aspect of the mind, and there's also the affective state of the mind. So another kind of division. And different kinds of minds in terms of how they get at the object that it is realizing, in terms of whether it's going through an intermediate sign. In that case, it would be an inferential cognition. If it does not need to use an intermediating sign, then it's called a direct perception. If it is mistaken about the object that it is apprehending or getting at, it's called a mistaken consciousness. If it realizes or apprehends an object which does not exist, then that's called a wrong consciousness. If the mind is kind of unsure, uncertain about whether a certain thing is the entity A or entity B, then that mind is called a doubting consciousness. So there are these different kinds of minds, and we usually kind of progress through these minds to ultimately cultivate what is called a direct perception in our mind. With respect to objects like impermanence or emptiness. Even for some conventional worldly objects also, that is the process that we go through. We could start with the wrong consciousness, then it comes to doubting consciousness, then it comes to doubting consciousness which is tending towards reality. Then based on the doubting consciousness, you could proceed to a thought consciousness which realizes the object, but only through an intermediate sign. So that is an inference. And then after inference, you actually have a direct perception of that object. So that is generally the progression. And then once you've had a realization of that object, then there could be subsequent moments of the mind which realizes the same object. So that is called a subsequent cognition. So our memories are subsequent cognizers. So this is the hierarchy of minds, distinct kinds of minds that arise in a mental continuum. So, as I said, we often notice some discomfort in our being. It could be either some sort of, it could take on a mental form or a physical form. And then if we do not make an attempt to regulate it, control it, then it could take on more serious forms. And that's what happens with anger. So it starts off as a small kind of, a very insignificant kind of discomfort. And then if you do not control it, then it takes on more serious forms. So that's what the Buddha has said here. He says, just like if you do not control weeds, they can become the bane of fields and destroy the entire field. So similarly, if you do not control the instincts of hatred in your mind, your entire mind will be pervaded by this afflictive affliction, and it will be very difficult for you to get rid of it later on, because then it makes a permanent residence in your mental continuum. And then invoking the right kind of antidotes, however much you invoke those antidotes, they won't be that effective. So it's very important to notice when anger is arising and then nip it in the bud. So for that, we need to cultivate this mindfulness, noting where our mind is. Okay, so in the previous session, we looked at this list. So we've seen what are the different kinds of minds which are similar to anger. So there's repugnance or anger, then there's belligerence, a stronger form of anger, resentment, spite, then there's harmfulness, hatred, and envy and pride are kind of affiliated to the anger class. And on the other hand, there are mental factors which could be deemed as, or minds that could be deemed as antidotes to anger. So patience, harmlessness, compassion, loving kindness, and the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta. So these are the antidotes that we need to cultivate. And that's what we're going to spend time on today. We're going to see what are the different techniques to cultivate patience. So before we do that, just let's revise some of the things that we discussed last time. So we'd seen that there are different flaws of anger. So we've seen how anger can lead to the merits that we've accumulated in the past being compromised in their ability to yield pleasant effects in the future. So we've seen there could be different ways in which this could happen. One is complete destruction of past merits. Another way it can manifest is attenuation of its potential to yield positive effects in the future. So you've accumulated merit in the past through virtuous actions, but you engaged in an angry act, and that would diminish the ability of the past merit to yield a positive effect in the future. in terms of the effect itself. Instead of having, let's say, 100 units of enjoyment, it would just probably yield 10 units of enjoyment. Yeah. And another way in which it could manifest is delaying the effect. So instead of being able to enjoy the fruits of positive actions in the past, good karma in the past, merit from the past, in this lifetime itself, the experience of that pleasant effect is delayed maybe into the next lifetime or future lifetimes. So that's how anger can compromise the ability of merit to yield positive effects. Uh, for people like us who are practicing the Mahayana path, uh, we are invested in the cultivation of um, compassion, in the cultivation of loving kindness, in the cultivation of other cherishing. Uh, so, for somebody like us who's invested in the cultivation of these kind of practices, anger is the biggest impediment. Yeah. Because all these practices, other cherishing attitude, loving kindness, compassion is directed towards other people. And when you generate anger, let's say, as a reaction to some provocation from other people, you're abandoning that person. You're saying that it doesn't matter whether this person is included in the sphere, in my sphere of compassion. It doesn't matter if he's not included in my sphere of loving kindness. So that actually compromises a practice of loving kindness, cultivating loving kindness and compassion, cultivating other cherishing. All these practice of other cherishing, cultivating other cherishing, compassion, loving kindness, they're unqualified. And they're not restricted or limited only to those people who are dear to you. Yeah? They are just directed to other people, irrespective of what relation they have with you. Yeah, it comes from the understanding that uh, myself and others are identical in the desire for happiness and desire to be free from suffering. So all these attitudes are originate from that realization, and hence they cannot be restricted or limited. No. So they're just directed at others because we find that they're identical in these pursuits to us. That's the only reason. So it does not kind of discriminate on the basis of what type of person that is. Yeah. So if we cultivate anger or hatred in our mind, then it's compromising our ability to deliver on this aspiration. So it's a great obstacle. There are other afflictions in our mind stream also, but anger probably has the most potential to compromise the practice of compassion and loving kindness and other cherishing. It destroys our mental calm. It destroys all those things that we deem to be central to our happiness. We want good physical health. It gets compromised if we are in the habit of responding angrily to stimuli in the environment. Our material positions could be compromised if we get angry. We direct our anger sometimes at our material possessions. Friends and companions, we lose on friendships, we lose on our companions when we direct anger towards them. Or even if it's not directed towards them, if you're in general a very angry person, then very few people want to be around us in any case. So it destroys all those things that we consider central to our happiness, and it destroys our composure. So the part of the brain that helps us in making good judgments about what is right, what is wrong, what is optimal, what is not optimal, what is beneficial, what is not beneficial in the long term, in the short term, all these judgments, the part of the brain that makes these judgments, apparently anger kind of compromises the capacity, the ability of that part of the brain. And then we'd also seen some reasons. We initiated discussion on what are the reasons why anger can be pointless. So this verse, for example, talks about how cultivating the desire to seek revenge uh, is a pointless exercise. So if you respond with vengeance when someone harms you, does your bitterness reverse what has already done? What was already done? A resentment serves no purpose here in this life, and it brings more conflicts in the world beyond too. So not just in this life, but even in the future, it compromises our peace, or it brings more conflicts. Yeah. So revenge does not reverse whatever harm has been done to you. So it's pointless to kind of seek revenge. It does not bring you or even the person that is directed at any kind of benefit. He who speaks of exhausting the fruits of non-virtuous actions performed in the past, how can he bear to plant the seeds of future pain by inflicting harm on others and being angry at them? So another example of contradictory behavior. So we seek to purify our past actions or the past karmic seeds, wanting that they do not fructify into unpleasant experiences for us. And at the same time, we do not hesitate to plant uh, seeds of future pain by reacting to provocations from others, by inflicting harm on others, by being angry at them. So, this is a very contradictory behavior. So, it's contradictory to dislike future suffering. We know that there could be future suffering because you accumulated negative karma in the past, and we want to purify that. But then that's one thing. And then we retaliate against provocations. And that plants new seeds for new kinds of suffering in the future. So it's a very contradictory kind of behavior. Uh, so we're all kind of, we speak of our wish to exhaust the fruits of non virtuous actions performed in the past. So for us, how can we, plant the seeds of future pain? Yeah. So a better reaction would be to just endure whatever pain has been inflicted on us uh, through provocation from others. So just like in order to be able to get to rid ourselves of persistent pain from an open wound, you wouldn't mind going to a physician, to a doctor, and get it sewn up. The process of suturing it, stitching it, that is painful. It involves a sharp needle. It makes all these holes in your skin, but you tolerate that with the idea that it will relieve you of much more serious pain in the future. So similarly, we should be able to tolerate minor pain in the near term to ensure that we do not have to experience more serious forms of suffering, physical pain in the future. So,
Venerable.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
Venerable, so this kind of an attitude also should not make us feel like a doormat, right? That, because that's not beneficial to
yeah,
us either,
uh,
right?
right,
Like someone who can just be taken for granted, or someone who is, because once you start feeling like that, then that's something you have to deal with, because that's not going to, that doesn't help you. So then how does one sort of take the whatever, the misdeeds of others
mhm,
without reacting, uh, and also not end up feeling like a doormat, like some kind of person who can be walked all over and will not, and then feeling, maybe say low self-esteem or something because of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine balance. You don't want to be seen as somebody who reacts to all kinds of any kind of provocation. But at the same time, you're right. Uh, let's say there's somebody who kind of intentionally wants to provoke you, uh, and uh, he's got into this habit where he's doing it just intentionally, just to kind of irritate you or thing. Um, Maybe there's a way to kind of indicate to him that it is not productive, it's not useful, uh, without actually being without actually getting angry at that person. You find a way to tell him, to make it known to him that this behavior on your part, of course, it's not. You're not losing your composure. That's the least you should be doing. You shouldn't lose your composure. You shouldn't get angry at that person. But you should be aware that that kind of behavior from the other side can't be encouraged also. It needs to be made known to that person that it is not productive. Uh, so there's a responsibility on your part to ensure that that person uh, does not create negative karma. You're preventing him from engaging in unwholesome deeds. You have a responsibility to do that. So you need to kind of identify the least aggressive way to do it. Uh, Least in the sense that at least you should ensure that you're not getting angry or you're not getting agitated. Yeah, and then find a way to indicate to that person that this behavior is not right. Yeah. You're right. I mean, you can't be seen to be passive in all situations. But it's the motivation that matters, as we've been discussing. If the motivation is to, as it just described, from your side, you're not getting angry. From your side, you're not getting agitated. From your side, you don't have any wish to kind of bring some harm, mental or physical, to that person. All you're trying to do is ensure that that person does not engage in similar patterns of behavior, because that is an unwholesome action and it leads to him creating negative karma. If that is the motivation with which you do the which you indicate to that person that your behavior is not right, then I think there's no problem with that. Yeah. So yeah, that definitely needs to be explored. But you know, we
Okay.
situations are never black and white. There's always a lot of gray.
Yeah.
So we need to be very discerning, very aware of what the situation is. We have to have a proper description of the situation and a proper understanding of what the consequences of our actions could be. To the best possible, I mean, what we should do is probably just take the safer approach. If you're not sure that we either have the authority or the resources to influence that person's behavior in a positive manner, then I think you need to kind of hold back uh, uh, your advising that person. Yeah. Our advice is just going to make him more agitated. If that is the situation, then I don't think anything good will come off our speaking to that person. So these are calls that we'll have to make on a context to context basis. Yeah, a lot of analysis and a lot of discernment will be required to take calls in these kind of situations.
Yes.
Okay, so we dislike future suffering, and yet we have this tendency to react to provocations and then plant seeds for future suffering. In there's this example in the Dhamma uh, talks about a person. Uh, and so this was a small girl. So in her younger days, she uh, was gifted an egg by a fisherman, and when she ate the egg, she developed a craving for that kind of food, to the extent that whatever, any other food that her mother served her, she would not accept. So she started developing this intense craving for eggs. Uh, so what she would do is that they had a hen in their house, and she would collect all the eggs that the hen would lay, and cook them and eat the eggs. So the hen would observe this, and the hen developed some sort of grudge against this girl. Yeah, animals can develop grudges, right? Although they may not be able to voice it, they can develop grudges. So the hen was angry at this person and this girl, and developed a grudge. And then the hen kind of wanted to retaliate in some manner. Obviously, it wasn't in a position to do anything about it. So when the uh, hen passed on, it took on the form. It took rebirth as a cat in the same household, and the girl, the daughter of the household, was reborn as a hen in the same household. And then when the girl in the next lifetime, she was a hen. The hen would lay eggs, and the cat would come and take away all the eggs and eat all the eggs. So the hen then started developing a grudge against the cat and wanted to retaliate. And that the desire for retaliation was very intense and very strong. So in that lifetime, when the hen passed on, the hen was reborn as a leopardess, and the cat was reborn as a doe. And the doe in sometime had a baby. So the leopardess then ate the uh, doe's baby and the doe also. So this cycle kind of continued for almost 500 births. And then in the time of the Buddha, one of them was born as what is called a Yakshini or an ogress. And the other girl was born as a daughter of a rich household. In time, she was married off, and she was staying with her husband, and she had a baby. So this ogress who'd nurtured this grudge from the past wanted to mm, uh, harm the other person. So she went over to the other person's house and inquired where the girl is. So the servant of the house said that the girl has just delivered a baby, and she is in this room. And the ogress waited for a moment when the girl wasn't around, and she went into the house and killed the baby and ate it. This happened once, then the girl delivered for a second time, had a second baby. It happened, the same thing happened again. The third time, when she was pregnant, the girl said to her husband that there's an ogress in this household, and she kills all the babies that we have. So we should, this time I would want to go to my mother's house to deliver the baby. And that's what she does. She goes over to the mother's house. So the ogress, when she comes to this house, to the girl's house, she's told by the servants that she's not here. She's gone to her mother's house to deliver. So the ogress goes over to the mother's house, and uh, so while the other girl, she's in the mother's house, she's delivered the baby, and then she decides that after a few days she decides she wants to go back to her house. So they're on the way back to their own house. So on the way they see monastery, and next to the monastery there's a small pond. So the lady who's delivered the baby goes for a bath and in the pond. Then the husband goes, and while the husband is in the pond, the girl, the lady, sees the ogress coming from the other side. So the moment she comes, she realizes that is the ogress, and knows that she wants to harm the baby. So she screams out to the husband, saying that the ogress is here, come and save me. So the husband gets alerted, but in the meantime, the girl doesn't want to wait for the husband. She rushes into the monastery. She enters the monastery. So the Buddha is actually giving a sermon at that time in that monastery, and so she goes in the presence of the Buddha and places the child in front of him and pleads with him to save that child, uh, and tells him about all this story. So the Buddha asks Ananda to go to the main gate of the monastery and see whether the ogress is there. So the ogress is on the way. The Buddha asked Ananda to bring in the ogress, to summon the ogress. And Ananda does that. When the ogress comes to the monastery, she is also summoned in the presence of Buddha. And then the Buddha says that if you hadn't met me, this cycle of violence, this cycle of retaliation, revenge would have continued for lifetimes, endlessly. So you need to kind of put an end to this cycle. So then he gave this discourse. He said, for not by hatred do hatred cease. At any time in this place, they only cease with non-hatred. This truth is surely eternal. So what happened with these two sentient beings? The cycle of revenge, retaliation was unceasing till they actually met the Buddha. So, although we want to free ourselves from suffering in the future, we keep creating these causes uh, for our suffering in the future. Yeah, we're not mindful about the harm that our actions could inflict on other beings. Uh, Even when we are kind of responding to a provocation, we may feel justified that we've been provoked. But if you're responding to that provocation with anger, then that leads to some sort of harm, mental or physical, to the other person. And then that plants the seed for that person to develop this wish to take revenge. And the cycle kind of keeps continuing. So we need to be aware of this tendency in ourselves. It's contradictory to dislike future suffering, but yet keep retaliating to any kind of harm in the near term. It's inappropriate to become angry because it destroys virtues accumulated in the past over a long period. So we've already seen this, and we've seen how what are the different ways in which anger could impede uh, our experience of pleasant experiences in the future uh, through the merit that we have accumulated in the past. It disfigures your face and robs you of judgment. We have seen this. It's the blemish from anger is not reserved only for experiences in the future. It does have impact in the near term also. So wrath disfigures your face and leads you to what is unwholesome. It robs your mind of the judgment of what is right and wrong. Intolerance is swift to throw you to the lower realms. And we had seen how Aniruddha's sister Rohini, in a previous lifetime, because of a dislike, anger directed towards one of the dancers in the king's court, she was the queen, but she realized that the king had some fondness for one of the dancers, and then she generated this anger towards that dancer, and then she, used um, the powder of velvet seeds to make her suffer from itching. And she had the dancer, when the powder was thrown on her, she developed all kinds of rashes and all kinds of boils. And she was in a lot of turmoil and experienced a lot of suffering. And because of that wicked deed, Rohini was then later, in the time of Buddha, she was born as the sister of Aniruddha, who was an arhat, one of the cousins of Buddha. Uh, she developed leprosy in that lifetime. It was the result of this past wicked deed. So, of course, this talks about the result manifesting in the future. But even in the near term, it leads to a lot of physical transformation. Anger triggers all kinds of physical transformation. So it could be in the form of the facial expression getting completely transformed. You have a pleasant appearance generally, but when you get angry, it becomes uglier. Yeah, I think it's true for all of us. Uh, Anger triggers all kinds of other reactions. There's inconsistent breathing, there's rise in the heart rate and blood pressure. There's all kinds of physical stress that we experience. Of course, it leads to a sleepless night. So these are all the physical effects of anger. And it also leads to all kinds of mental effects. So, for example, you prepared a nice meal for yourself. Madhvi, you prepare good, delicious lunch, and you're enjoying your delicious lunch. But then something is brought to your attention, something that makes you extremely agitated and angry. The same food that you've been enjoying, which was so delicious a moment back, now does not taste as good as a moment ago. Nothing else has changed in the environment. It's the same food, it's the same environment, nothing except that your mental state has become more turbulent and agitated. You become more angry. And because of that disquiet in your mind, the same food does not taste as delicious as it did a moment back. Um, if you get angry at a certain person, the anger is directed towards that person, and you keep plotting about how to put that person in his place. So all that plotting kind of consumes your mental energy, and it makes you again very agitated, leads to a lot of disquiet, a lot of discomfort, mental discomfort. Even a normal person, even a person who is very composed normally would, lose his composure when he gets angry. He gets very agitated. So these are the different kinds of transformation, physical as well as mental transformation. We've seen that how anger can be the worst impediment for those practicing the Bodhisattva Yana path. Uh, it leads to burn bridges with your friends and companions, but even towards teachers, uh, anger can erode your respect. So the Bodhicharya Avatara says, a master who has hatred is in danger of being killed even by those who, for their wealth and happiness, depend upon his kindness. So, generally, normally, the master is very kind to the disciples, and the disciples acknowledge his kindness. They depend on his kindness, on his generosity, and acknowledge it, are very aware of it. But if the master has gotten angry, or if the disciple gets angry, then there's this possibility that there will be some harm directed towards the master uh, from the disciple's side. So anger creates all these unfortunate situations. So even an object of veneration could be treated shabbily when you generate a moment of anger, when you generate some anger in your mind stream. So let's say there's a teacher who has been a source of kindness and material support to his devotees. When either the teacher or the devotee is under the grip of anger, then the very same person forgets all the kindness that was directed to him from the master's side. Even the teacher forgets all the help and the service that the devotee has extended, and it leads to unpleasant situations. Either the disciple engages in some sort of an unwholesome act, or even the teacher could kind of direct his anger towards the disciple. So, not just friends and companions, but it compromises your relationship with even teachers. It has the potential uh, to compromise your equation with your teachers, which leads to very negative karma. Yeah, we've been, studying how uh, relying on a guru is a very essential, important, critical component of our practice. And if we are not in control of our anger, and there's an unfortunate situation where we direct some anger towards the teacher, then it really leads to a very very highly negative karma. Erodes trust from friends and relatives. So anger is the enemy that creates suffering. Yeah. Uh, in brief, there is these are the verses from the Bodhicharya Avtara. It says, in brief, there is nobody who lives happily with anger. Hence, the enemy anger creates sufferings as these. So you can't really think about anybody who lives happily with anger. Can you think about any example? I think it's very difficult to think about an example of a happy person who is also a very, very angry person. So anger is our primary enemy, and it is the source of all of our of a lot of our suffering. So no one abiding in anger has the prospect of experiencing happiness or comfort in the future. So we need to do something that helps us control anger. If we can't cultivate an antidote that can eliminate anger, at the least, what we should do is ensure that it does not trigger any kind of ill will in our mental continuum. So, developing an antidote which will eliminate anger is the best option, but at least manifest forms of ill will shouldn't we should be able to control. So these are some of the flaws of anger. So what we'll do is we'll take a break for 5 minutes and then reassemble and then continue our discussion on how we can cultivate patience, which is the antidote to anger. It's part of our training in the six perfections. So we'll just briefly kind of look how it fits into our practice of accumulating merit from the practice of the perfections, the six perfections, how it relates to the other perfections, and then look at the specific techniques to cultivate patience. Okay, so let's take a 5 minute break. Yeah, we'll reassemble at right now is 11:20 in my watch. 12, yeah, 11:20. We reassemble at 11:25, and then we'll discuss for about 45 minutes, and then we'll stop. Okay, see you in 5 minutes then. So, okay, let's begin. Okay, so there's this incident in the Buddha's life, during his lifetime, rather. There was a bhikshu. So, uh, you're all aware that the bhikshus have something called the monsoon retreat. We just started our monsoon retreat yesterday. So for a period of about 3 months during the monsoon time, you just stay put in one place and you don't travel outside. So there are various reasons. One of the reasons being that during the monsoons, there are a lot of creatures that kind of come out, uh, and you could unintentionally step onto them and take their life, kill them. So to prevent these kind of accidents and mishaps, it's better you stay put in one place. For example, during our monsoon retreat, we are not allowed to step onto grass. Yeah, there's a lot of life especially during that time in grass, and it's not visible to us, and you unintentionally kind of step onto it and take its life. That's can be avoided. So for these and other reasons, during monsoon retreat, you stay in one place. But at the end of the retreat, you can. The practice was that the monks would just disperse and go to their own, to their places where they do their solitary meditation practices. And you can also take a precedence outside the monastery. So the Buddha had just given the permission to the monks, to the sangha, to take a precedence outside the monastery. So there was this bhikshu who wanted to build a cottage for himself. So just beyond the boundary of the monastery outside, he identified a place where he could build a cottage. And then he was looking for material to build the cottage. And he happened to notice a nice tree. He thought would be good for getting the wood from for his cottage. So he started cutting the tree. And it happened that there was a, a devata or a god, tree god, residing in that tree. She had taken up residence in that tree. And she had a child, a small child. And she was worried when the tree was being cut by the bhikshu. So she manifested in front of the bhikshu and told the bhikshu that, this is the case, please don't cut the tree. Me and my baby will be deprived of a residence. Uh, but the bhikshu said, no, there's no other tree that can provide me the wood for my cottage, so I need to cut this tree. And he ignored her request. And then she persisted, and uh, she thought that maybe if the bhikshu happens to see my baby, then um, he'll have a change of heart. So she places the baby on a branch. Uh, but even before the bhikshu happens to notice it, he's already swung his axe. Uh, and without knowing it, he injures the baby. And the devta is very angry. She raises both her arms and is about to pounce onto the bhikshu and injure her. And she has this desire to, out of anger, she wants to kill the bhikshu. But then she arrests her anger, controls it, saying that this is a ordained person, and if I kill an ordained person, then I'm sure that I'll be reborn in the worst hell, the Nirai hell. And she says that not only that, if I uh, bring any injury or harm to this bhikshu, then there are other devtas residing in other trees, and they would want to ensure their safety and the safety of their shelter. And if they hear about me bringing harm onto a bhikshu, then they would also want to emulate this example. So that would be not nice. And she arrests her anger, and she says that I shouldn't be engaging in this kind of violent behavior. I'm sure this bhikshu has his master, and I can go to his master and uh, see what remedy his master has for the situation. So she walks up to the Buddha. The Buddha is in the monastery, and she narrates this incident to him. And the Buddha praises the Devta, saying that it's very nice that you did not engage in any harmful action, in a violent action, and you restrained your anger. And then he gave this discourse. He says, he who restrains his rising anger as a skillful charioteer checks a speeding chariot. Him I call a true charioteer. Other charioteers only hold the reins. So a person who can regulate, control one's rising anger, is aware when the anger is rising, and when he navigates that moment skillfully and prevents anger from manifesting in a more forceful, aggressive, harmful, violent form, that person I deemed to be a skillful charioteer or sarthi, as we had seen in yesterday's discussion also. The others are just kind of holding reins, reins to the horses. That's not such a big deal. So, what is the Buddha advising? He says you need to be aware when your when anger manifests in your mind stream, and you need to be able to restrain your rising anger and navigate that moment skillfully. So that kind of a person I consider to be a skillful charioteer. There was also but then the Devta pleaded with the Buddha, said, yeah, the Devta, after hearing this discourse, was established in the fruit of stream entry. But she said that I still am without an abode. So the Buddha then directed her to a tree which was close to his cottage. And he said that Devta had vacated that tree just a day before. So you can take a precedence in that tree. And then she took a precedence in that tree. And although there were other more powerful devtas in the vicinity who wanted to take residence in that tree, they couldn't because the Buddha had blessed that tree. So that is the story of this devta and the monk. And then there's another incident. This is between two ladies. So once again, there's a lady called Uttara, and there's another lady called Sirima. So Uttara was born in a poor household to farmers, in a farming household. When she was young, it happened on one day, her father was farming, plowing the fields. Mother was preparing food for the husband. She prepared some rice for the husband and was on the way to bring the food to her hungry husband in the farms. At that very time, Shariputra he had exited what is called the absorption of cessation. So he was walking by that in that part of the city, town rather, and he was walking on the road. So Uttara's mother, she noticed Shariputra, and she walked up to Shariputra. She felt that, in the past, when I wanted to offer something to a holy being, either there was no holy being when I had some food to offer, or when the holy being was around, I didn't have any food to offer. But this time, there is a holy person around, and I have food to offer. So she offers all the food that she's prepared for her husband, Punya. All the food is offered to Shariputra. And before Shariputra had received the offering from Punya's husband, Punya himself had offered made some offering to Shariputra. He'd offered what is called a toothstick to clean the teeth. So based on these offerings to a very holy being like Shariputra, he was an arhant, and he had just stepped out of his meditation, absorption of cessation, a very powerful kind of samadhi. And the result of that action was to bring him immediate prosperity, because he was so generous. He and his wife were so generous. His wife particularly was so generous. she offered all the food that she had prepared for her husband to Shariputra. Because of that generous deed, they were rewarded immediately. So they struck gold in the fields that they were plowing. And Punya became a very rich man. And the king kind of acknowledged him as the official banker of the town and of the city and all that. So later on, when Uttara grew up, and there was another rich family in the town. The rich family asked Punya, Uttara's father, to marry Uttara in their house, uh, into their household. But Punya was reluctant to do that because the other household, they were not spiritual, they were not devotees of the Buddha. And Uttara, Punya, and his wife, all of them were devotees of the Buddha and had immense faith in the Buddha Dharma. So Punya felt that if Uttara is married off into that household, then she will not have any opportunity to do any kind of virtuous deeds, engage in acts of generosity like offering to the Sangha and all that. So he's very reluctant. But then other powerful people in the town, they advise Punya to reconsider his decision. And then after reconsidering, he agrees to marry off Uttara into that household. So Uttara gets married into that household. But from the time she comes to the household, she realizes that this family is not very religious and they don't have any faith in the Buddha Dharma. So she's very kind of sad about it, and she complains to her father also. Um, uh, so she's been there for about 2.5 months, and she inquires with one of the servants in the household how long before the monsoon retreat ends, and the servant says that there's another half month to for the monsoon retreat to end, and she then generates this immense desire to do something during the monsoon retreat for the Sangha. So she writes to her father saying that this is the situation. So the father then lends Uttara some crazy amount of money, some 10,000 gold coins, and tells her that there's this very famous dancer in the city called Sirima. She's very beautiful. So you can she charges about 1,000 gold coins for every performance. So you can buy her services as a mistress for 15 days to your husband. And she discusses this with the husband, and the husband is also kind of he's drawn in by the beauty of Sirima, and he agrees readily. So Uttara then she's freed from all her household responsibilities, and she's just busy with serving the Sangha. So she's busy preparing meals for the Sangha and preparing all kinds of offerings. So on the final day, on the 15th day, when the monsoon retreat is about to end, she's busy with all the preparations. And the husband notices Uttara doing all this and being so flustered, and so she looks exhausted and tired. And he thinks to himself how foolish this lady is. Instead of enjoying the wealth of this family or the pleasures that this wealth affords, she's busy doing all kinds of things that makes her look tired and exhausted in serving the Sangha. What good comes of it? And he kind of laughs at that thought. So Sirima, in the meantime, notices him laughing in that direction, and she's wondering who this person is, who the husband is laughing at. And she notices Uttara, and then she thinks that no doubt there's some sort of intimacy still uh, between the husband and Uttara. So she develops a lot of anger. She's kind of assumed that she's the queen of the household, or she's the main the chief of the household. Uh, so out of that pride, she develops some sort of anger towards Uttara and decides to do something about it. So she goes over to the kitchen, and there's food that's being prepared. So she um, picks up a spoon and draws a spoonful of hot ghee or butter from the pan and is about to throw it on Uttara. So Uttara notices her approaching, and she uh, then says that it's only through the kindness of Sirima that I've had this wonderful opportunity, the privilege of being able to serve the Sangha during the monsoon retreat. So I should not be developing any kind of anger or annoyance towards her. I should, in fact, direct loving kindness towards her. And she does that. And she says that if I have any kind of anger residual in my mind stream towards Sirima, then let this butter burn me. Otherwise, let it not burn me. So when the butter is thrown on her head, she doesn't get burned. It's like cool water touching her scalp. So Siriman is kind of surprised by this. She thinks that maybe the butter is too cold. She goes to fetch another spoonful of hot butter. But then the servants of the household, they get alerted to the situation. So they catch hold of Sirima and then they beat her. Uh, Uttara tries to intervene, but the servants, too many and too kind of powerful or too physical. So she's not able to separate them. But at the end, she manages to kind of, quieten the situation, and she then uh, gives a hot water bath to Sirima, and then kind of applies ointment on all her injuries. And Sirima is then kind of taken in by this act of kindness from Uttara. She says that even though I wanted to harm her, Uttara has been so kind to me. Uh, she develops remorse in her mind stream, and then she wants to apologize to uh, Uttara, and she says that please pardon me. But Uttara says, if my father pardons you, then I'll pardon you. So Sirima says, okay, fine, I'll go up to your father's house and I'll seek his pardon. Uh, so Uttara says, Punya is my father in these rounds of rebirth and death. There's another father. Uh, I have my father in the world beyond these rounds of rebirth and death. And then Sirimana asks Uttara, who is that person? And she says, it's the Samyak Sambuddha, the Buddha. And Sirimana says, okay, I'll seek his pardon. So then arrangements are made to bring her into the presence of the Buddha. So Sirima prepares some offerings and she's brought into the presence of the Buddha. And the Buddha then asks Uttara what is the situation. And then Uttara kind of narrates the entire story. And the Buddha asks uh, Uttara what kind of mindset she had generated when she saw Sirima about to throw this hot spoonful of butter on her. And she said that she was very aware of the fact that it's only because of the kindness of Sirima that she was able to have the privilege of serving the Sangha during the monsoon retreat. And I generated only loving kindness towards her. I didn't generate any kind of hatred or anger towards her. And the Buddha kind of appreciated that, and uh, he also heard from Sirima and then asked Uttara to pardon Sirima, and Uttara readily pardoned Sirima. And then at that time, he gave this discourse. He says, conquer the angry one by not getting angry, that is by loving kindness. Conquer the wicked by goodness. Conquer the stingy by generosity. And the liar by speaking the truth. So this should be our instinct. Instead of directing an angry act towards a person who is directing anger at you, hatred at you, you should be directing loving kindness towards that person. Instead of directing wickedness towards a wicked person, direct goodness to that person, towards that person. Instead of being stingy towards a miserly person, try and influence him through your acts of generosity. And instead of responding to a lie with a lie, try and speak the truth. So these are the ways in which you can remedy these situations. So there's a lot of value in cultivating loving kindness to deal with a situation where somebody is getting angry at you. So do not respond with anger to angry people. Respond with loving kindness. So that is the antidote that we need to cultivate. So loving kindness, patience, we had seen patience, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta. These are the antidotes to uh, anger. So what is the definition of patience? I mean, I didn't find any kind of precise definition of patience, but here's a description of patience. It's some sort of resolute response, yeah, or a settled response in the face of adversity or provocation. So it stems from a settled, calm, subdued kind of temperament. So what that means is that it does not perturb you. If you have that kind of a settled temperament, then internal or external disturbances do not perturb you. They do not disturb you. So if you have these qualities, then that's when you are said to have patience in your mind stream. Or you can understand patience through these three characteristics that it exhibits. So patience, if you cultivated patience, then you have what is tolerance towards injuries from others. So there could be physical or mental injuries directed to caused by others. Um, you could have tolerance based on voluntary acceptance of pain and hardship. So you analyze, investigate the nature of suffering, and you kind of voluntarily accept higher levels of pain and suffering. So you build your tolerance towards suffering. You have a higher threshold of tolerance for pain, or tolerance resulting from reflecting on the nature of reality. So let's look at each of these characteristics individually. Okay, let's just skip all this. So tolerance based on conscious voluntary acceptance of pain, hardships, and suffering. So you need to kind of analyze the nature of our existence. You will find that there are more factors and conditions in our environment that can bring us pain, that can bring us suffering, as compared to factors or conditions that can give us pleasure or joy or happiness. Uh, the factors and conditions that can bring us pain are comparatively more abundant, whereas the other kind of factors that can bring us joy and happiness are comparatively rare. So what does that imply? It just implies that suffering is a part of our. It's a natural fact of our existence. It's part of our reality. And instead of responding negatively to this fact, anyways, we have to undergo pain, suffering at some point or the other. There's no possibility that in the kind of existence that we're part of right now, we'll be free of pain or suffering. So might as well accept it and adopt an attitude that would enable us to tolerate this pain. So enhance our pain thresholds through this kind of reasoning. So all of most of us have kind of played some sort of game where there is physical contact, um, football, for example, uh, or maybe I don't know the ladies here in the group. I don't know what games you have played when you were younger, but if you played football, for example, there's no point in complaining that there's too much pushing or shoving or physical force coming from your opponent's side. You have to kind of accept that in order to be able to excel on the field, you have to kind of accept the fact that there will be these kind of obstructions coming from the opposing team. They are not there to make your job easier. They're there to impede your ability to score a goal. So all kinds of physical obstruction will be kind of directed at you, although there is a referee to kind of regulate that. But it's impossible to imagine a situation where there will be no physical contact or physical obstruction. And if that is the situation, and you kind of, if you accept that, there will be physical obstruction, and you just have to find a way to navigate it, or accept a higher level of, or develop a higher threshold for pain directed at you from tackles from the opposing team, then you will have a better chance of dribbling through your opponents and scoring a goal. If you're kind of occupied by this thought of in fear of harm coming from the others, physical obstruction coming from the others, then that will compromise your ability to excel on the field. So it's similar in our life. I mean, there's we want to excel in whatever field, whatever occupation we are in. There will always be obstructions coming from others. We've seen the causal flow of anger, and we've seen how the determinants for anger or the causes of anger is this fact that there are other beings, other people, or other factors which impede you from being united with what you desire, or on the other hand pushing you towards what you don't desire. So that is there, that pervades our environment. You can't really imagine an environment that is free of that. So for you to realize your eight worldly concerns, there will always be these obstructions coming from the others in your environment. So accept that, accept a slightly higher threshold for these kind of obstructions or provocations. So use that kind of reasoning to enhance your pain thresholds.
Venerable, the
Yeah, yeah.
challenge to this, I think, is like, like not monks, but like regular, like lay people. We live in a
Mm.
world and where we are constantly striving to reduce our pain, right? I mean,
Right,
when and increase our comfort. Like
right.
that's the whole point of
Yeah,
you want a good job so you can get a good, like you can get money, and so then you can live in a more comfortable house and have more stuff that makes your life comfortable, and go on vacations which also makes your life comfortable. So it's like a bit hard to, and even if you see on a day to day level, like if we just had to eat rice gruel every single day, that would sustain us, no doubt. But then obviously we want, you know, different kinds of food, and like even at the very mundane level. So I guess that's a bit of a challenge to developing, to enhancing your pain threshold.
yeah,
Just wanted to, like, just I
yeah.
thought, yeah, I mean, while in relation to anger, it
Yeah,
makes sense, but living a life where every single act of mine, like, literally, like, is seems to be sort of geared towards not enhancing my pain, but enhancing my comfort, I suppose.
correct. Yeah, that's true. Like you said, we all want to experience more physical comfort. For that, we need resources. Yeah, for that, we need money. For that, you need to kind of excel in your work place or in your business. Let's say you're working for for an employer, uh, and you're working in a group, and there are people who want to impede your progress or want to ensure that you don't get promoted, and they will try doing things that will impede your progress. But if you keep reacting to all the provocations that are being directed at you from their side, then you all of us are very limited mental, physical, and emotional resources. So our resources will be consumed into on something which is not productive and just dealing with these provocations. So I'm not saying that from a more practical point of view that you can ignore all the provocations, but you can there are always there are always provocations that can be ignored, and maybe there are certain kind of provocations that you feel that you should absolutely respond to them. But over a period of time, you can actually assess, uh, as you gain more experience in life, you also become wiser, I guess, and you're able to tolerate uh, more provocations, not just in terms of numbers, but also in terms of the seriousness of the provocation. So that ability kind of comes naturally to us, and it's only because we've seen life in an office workplace, and we know how to navigate some of these minor provocations. So we extend that argument a little further, and if you reason and analyze it, and then you'll find that we still have enough buffer left in us to be able to ignore even more provocation, numbers as well as seriousness. So I'm not saying that you can ignore all provocations, but you can definitely want to invest in identifying those provocations that can be ignored and those that you need to actually respond to. So with time and experience, you'll find that your threshold for handling these kind of provocations is enhancing. Yeah, so we can extend that mindset to other environments also outside the office. We can definitely do extend this kind of response to other environments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think with some wisdom we're able to handle higher levels of provocations. Yeah, we're definitely able to do that. Yeah. Okay, so the next aspect or characteristic of patience or tolerance is uh, it results from reflecting on the nature of reality. So, what is the nature of reality that is being referred to here? Two things. Uh, we should remind ourselves that those who are provoking us or wanting to harm us, those actions, they are determined by a network of factors, and is one very important factor is that they are gripped by their own negative emotions or afflictions. And these negative emotions are not their nature. They are kind of adventitious, as in they arise in the mind stream adventitiously. At times they arise, but that is not the nature of that being. So these negative emotions are the motivating force that drive them to direct harm towards you. So is these negative emotions that motivate others to bring harm to you. So you experience suffering through these kind of harmful actions, but there are cases where you experience suffering through inanimate sources, like if you are you're ill, you become ill, uh, you do not direct your anger towards the illness, right? Uh, so uh, you say you kind of argue or reason with yourself that illness per se doesn't have any kind of uh, deliberate intention to harm you. Yeah. So you need to kind of extend that argument or that reasoning, even in the case in situations where there are people or animate persons wanting to harm you. They are under the grip of the negative emotions. So it's not like they're doing it out of their own uh, will, so to say. Yeah. uh, it's not deliberate in that sense. They're being driven by their negative emotions. So we need to be aware of this aspect of reality, and then also be aware about the illusion like nature of reality. Again, a reference to the same thing, where this negativeness or the negativity that we associate with our environment, in our environment, is not the nature of the environment or the person. It just arises temporarily. So it creates this illusion of a negative force. Yeah. So it's not the inherent nature of that person to harm you. So be aware of this illusion like nature of our reality, our environment, and even that will help us cultivate tolerance. Then the third aspect of tolerance is that you uh, cultivate some sort of patience with uh, or resilience towards injuries from others. So you regard your harmers or your enemies as precious because they give you the opportunity to practice tolerance on the basis of which you can accumulate merit. And as we have just seen, uh, this harm that is being directed at you from others uh, is coming because they are possessed by some other force. What is that force? That is the force of their ignorance. So the actions stem from their ignorance. So we should kind of be willing to forgive the perpetrators of this harm that is directed towards you, saying that they do not know what they're doing because they're under the grasp of their ignorance, yeah, under the influence of another force. So these are the aspects of tolerance, which is an antidote to uh, anger. So how do we actually cultivate tolerance? So another thing that one needs to be aware about is uh, something that we've already referred to. So we need to be able to differentiate anger's constituents, and that would help us, tailor our response uh, to the provocation. So anger finds its fuel in mental happiness, in the prevention of what I wish for, and in the doing of what I do not want. Hatred increases and then destroys me. Therefore, I should totally eradicate the fuel of this enemy. So, what is the fuel of this enemy? The fuel of anger is this initial moments of mental happiness or mental discomfort that arise in us when we are exposed, either us or our dear ones are exposed to things that we do not desire, or we are obstructed from acquiring or possessing or experiencing or consuming something that we desire. So these sources of anger, they bring this mental discomfort in our mind, and those are the initial moments. That's the fuel of anger. So that is what initiates and enhances anger. So we train ourselves to recognize the discomfort of the mind and control it as soon as it arises. So that's another aspect that we need to kind of be aware of to cultivate the antidote of patience. So, what are the techniques to cultivate patience then? Okay, as as it comes up during our discussion on anger, we always feel that there are certain situations where our resentment or our anger is justified. We are justified in being intolerant. So we say that the aggressor has inflicted some harm or pain on me, and I'm totally justified in being hateful and angry towards that person. So let's say you kind of think about how that situation has come about, and you realize that among the factors that give rise to this feeling of hurt in our mind stream, there are both animate and inanimate factors. Yeah. So why is it that we always single out only the animate factors, like the person, the people behind the harm, and hold them responsible? So, for example, we do not hold grudges against our illness, although it causes us harm. Maybe in some cases it causes us very severe harm, but we do not hold any kind of grudges against the illness. Yeah. Maybe in case of corona or COVID, maybe slightly different. Or if we've been infected, we've got the virus, then we do hold a grudge against not the illness, but the person who we suspect has passed on the illness to us. So there again, you'll see that it is always directed towards some animate force. It's not directed to the actual source of the pain. So we justify saying that the situation is very different. Animate factors do not have a deliberate desire to injure or harm us. It's not deliberate. It's not kind of reasoned. It arises without any kind of deliberation, without their own choice. So if that is the justification, then we can counter that thought process or that thought by saying that even the person who inflicts pain on us, the harm is out of his or her control. He or she is compelled by other forces like the negative emotions in his mind stream, or the delusions in his mind stream, the ill feelings in his mind stream. So he's just the kind of secondary agent. The actual agent of anger or harm is the afflictions. So why don't we direct our anger towards the afflictions? Second reasoning would be, if inflicting harm upon others is somehow, in some way, the nature of the other person, it's an inalienable part of the person's nature, then there is no point in holding a grudge against that person, as he cannot help it. It's beyond him to do anything about it because it's his nature. Like it's the nature of fire to burn, it's the nature of the person to harm. So you can't hold a grudge against fire for burning. Similarly, you cannot hold a grudge against the person for harming you because that is the nature of the person. If, on the other hand, it is not his essential nature, but due to the nature of the circumstantial conditions, uh, maybe due to his submission to a fit of anger, if that is the situation, it is not his nature, but it is adventitious, then there is no point in holding that person accountable. It would be like begrudging, developing a grudge against the clouds for obscuring the sky. Yeah. So, so in both situations, your kind of getting provoked is not justified. Uh, Feeling justified in being tolerant, if someone hits you with a stick, then it should be the stick that you should direct the anger towards. The justification is it is the underlying cause that we should feel anger towards. Like you reasoned in the case of um, the harm, uh, in the case of illness, for example, you don't direct your anger towards the virus, but it's the person who's passed on the virus to you. So you're looking at an underlying cause, the primary cause. So it is the underlying cause that you should be directing your anger towards. So if somebody hits you with a stick, uh, then we don't direct our anger towards the stick. We always think about the motivating factor driving the act. And if that is the case, then you should go further. It's not the person who is the motivating factor or the driving factor. It's the hatred in the person's mental continuum that is the driving factor or the motivating factor. Why is it that we always single out the intermediary between the direct cause of harm, which is the stick, and the underlying cause, which is the motivating factor of hatred? Direct your anger towards the motivating factor of hatred. Fourth line of reasoning would be that all our painful experiences are consequences of our negative deeds from the past. Uh, so again, the justification is that we are justified in being intolerant because justified in being intolerant of the person because it is the underlying cause that we should feel anger towards. Now, when harm is being directed at you, there are multiple contributing factors. So there's the weapon that is wielded by the other person, and one other contributing factor to your experience of suffering is your own body. If your body were in the nature of being immune to any kind of physical harm, uh, then you won't develop any kind of anger, right? But our body is in this aspect where it has the capacity to feel the pain is because it is established by our past karma and afflictions. So our aggregates, the physical and mental aggregates, are the effect of our past karma and actions. So whatever pain we are experiencing, it is because this body has the nature of experiencing that pain. And why is that? Because this body was established by our past karma. So in a way, we are also contributing uh, to our experience of pain. So all our painful experiences are a consequence of our negative deeds from the past. If we had not engaged in negative deeds in the past, then we would not be in a position to experience this pain from this kind of harm. So, but that is the nature of our being. You know? For us, of course, for people like us who are novices on the spiritual path, even for established practitioners, for people who've had realized higher levels of realization, like Arya Nagarjuna, even Arya his disciple, they had to experience pain, physical pain. Arya, for example, lost his eye and he had to experience physical pain because of that. Arya Nagarjuna, he died from the injury uh, from his head being severed by a blade of grass. So these beings, they had attained very high levels of realization that realized the wisdom of emptiness. So if these beings are to experience this physical plane, then of course novices like us, we are in no position to say that we should be free from pain. We should realize that our experiences, all our painful experiences, are the consequence of our own negative deeds from the past. Yeah. Another line of reasoning would be that we should be grateful to the person inflicting pain or harm onto us because it gives us an opportunity to practice patience and tolerance. How else can you accumulate merit? How else can you practice the paramita of patience if you don't have a person who directs harm uh, uh, in your direction? Uh, another line of reasoning is if we retaliate, then not only will that act be of no use to the other person, in fact, it will harm him, but it will also be destructive to our own interests, something that we had discussed at the start of the session. So it deteriorates, it compromises our practice of other cherishing, our practice of compassion, our practice of bodhicitta, and it weakens our fortitude built through the practice of patience and tolerance. And we've seen that any act of retaliation, it accomplishes nothing. It's stated in the Bodhicharya Avatara as well as in Chandrakirti's text, Mula Madhyama Avatar. So all it does, it creates a vicious circle of violence, like we saw in the story of the Yakshini or the ogress. Just creates a vicious cycle of violence, retaliating. So there's no justification for it. Someone could say that in case there's some disrespectful or harsh words, insulting words directed at you, uh, then we are justified in retaliating because the first justification would be that it will lead other people to think less of me. So I should respond forcefully to that harsh speech or insulting words or disrespectful speech. But even if others kind of think less of me or dislike me, it's not going to cause any serious downfall to me either in this lifetime or in the future lifetimes. There's this episode from the Buddha's life where somebody hurls some abuse at him and he just ignores it. He uses the same logic that these words are not, they don't have any potential to harm me. And if you do not accept, what happens to a gift that is not accepted uh, by a person who is being gifted that gift? It goes back to the person who is giving the gift, the gifter, so to say. So, in a similar manner, if you do not accept harsh speech or insulting words. It just goes back to the person who is directing that harsh speech at you. So it does not really impact you in any way. But you could still say that no, it does impact my ability to uh, acquire worldly gains, success, and achievements, because it diminishes my status uh, in the eyes of other people, in the eyes of my work colleagues. There's this uh, diminishment that happens. Worldly gains cannot be carried into the next life. Whereas if you get angry and you engage in an angry act, uh, one carries the karmic seeds from that act into the future, and it can bring us suffering not in just one lifetime, but in several future lifetimes. One could still persist and say that, I'm justified in getting angry because if I get material wealth, if I do not respond, then it compromises my ability to acquire material wealth. And if I get material wealth, then I can live comfortably and I can engage in wholesome deeds and earn merit. So the argument against that would be that any negative action uh, that you engage uh, in your act of retaliating to some provocation, the consequences from those negative actions kind of far outweigh the few wholesome deeds that one may be able to do. In this example, where you acquire material wealth and you share it with others, the merit from that generous deed would be nothing in compared to as compared to the consequences from your negative action of retaliation. So, in case someone is disrespectful to you, then you should remind yourself that there is no physical injury, and why should we, compromise our mental peace by directing anger towards that person? Use these kind of arguments. Um, we often engage in acts of violence or aggression, or when uh, anger, or when harm is directed towards holy objects. We see a lot of that in the world today, uh, also in India, uh, when people easily take offense to, you know, mm, what is perceived as an act of disrespect towards their, to a certain creeds, certain communities, holy objects. So even in our case, as Buddhists, when somebody destroys a holy object, let's say a statue, a Buddha statue, or a stupa, we kind of feel justified in getting angry. We say that we are getting angry for the sake of dharma. We should be doing that to preserve our dharma. But the reality is that the sacred objects cannot be harmed. Uh, we react because we are not able to bear it. It's about our own insecurity. It's not to do anything with the holy objects itself.
When
Developing,
the sacred objects can be harmed, the stupa can be, uh,
yeah, it can be destroyed. Yeah,
destroyed. A statue can be
can be
broken.
destroyed. Yes, it can
So,
be. But
right, but that doesn't affect the dharma, even if
it doesn't affect it. It doesn't
is
affect the
that what
dharma.
it is? Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, these are. I mean, if you take offense to that, and you were to engage in a violent act of aggression, aggressive act, then uh, the damage that you do to the dharma is like infinite times more than the let's say the compromise to the dharma that has come through the destruction of that stupa.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree in terms of retaliation, but like let's say you feel uh you might feel upset, but I suppose even that is of no
No, even that is not
use,
helpful.
because again you're just spoiling your own
Your
merit by
correct,
angry thoughts, even if you don't actually retaliate.
correct, correct, correct.
Okay.
And if you retaliate, you're doing a lot of harm to the dharma, uh, to your faith. So better, practice patience even in these extremely. We find these situations extremely provocative for some reason. Yeah, acts of aggression against objects that represent your faith, they're deemed to be far more kind of provocative. I mean, that's an aspect of our psychology that we need to kind of just understand, probe a little more. Uh, there are similarly aggressive acts of provocation could be harming us in different ways at a personal level, or even at at the level of community. But when your faith is challenged, when aggression or harm is directed towards objects that are representing your faith, then that provocation is deemed to be, a sufficient justification for you to retaliate, do something about it. But the reality is that if you retaliate, then it does it harms the dharma much more. Even if there's some harm that is coming in the direction of your spiritual masters, friends, or relatives, um, we can reason in its reason using this reason you can kind of cultivate patience, saying that that experience of pain, or even let's say that act of aggression which is directed towards the master, is the effect of some past deed of his. So even that can help us cultivate some sort of tolerance in that situation. um, Another context in which we feel that we are justified in cultivating anger is when someone speaks highly of someone we do not like. Uh, so the justification is that you know you feel justified in being jealous. I should feel jealous of my enemy when he's praised by someone because it makes my enemy happy. But the ideal response is should be that there's someone who speaks highly of your enemy, perceived enemy, and that makes this person joyous and happy. It's giving him some joy. So we should actually rejoice his appreciation of your enemy. So one should rejoice uh, since one's enemy has caused the other person to be joyful, happy, and satisfied. So we need to kind of invoke all these different kinds of reasonings to deal with situations where there is potential for us to generate some sort of anger. So these are some of the techniques that we can deploy to cultivate patience and tolerance. So we'll stop here. We'll just do a short dedication before we end the session. So just take a moment to reflect on the discussion that we've had so far. Yeah, close your eyes and just take a moment to reflect on the discussion. So we discussed the flaws of anger. Then we discussed uh, how to cultivate patience, how patience is an antidote to anger. Of course, there are other antidotes also, but patience is a potent antidote. And then how to cultivate the practice of patience. And we saw different lines of reasonings that we can invoke to cultivate tolerance and patience when we are provoked. And we also tried to get some idea of what tolerance or patience is in terms of three characteristics that describe tolerance. So this discussion has uh, certainly yielded some good meritorious uh, karma. So let's direct the merit from that karma to a worthy cause. So, due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all sentient beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that does not arise and grow, and may that which is arise and not diminish but increase more and more. Make this dedication. Also, I'd like to make a dedication for all of you who are involved with the center's activities and are responsible for uh, you know all the various activities that happen at our center. ensuring that the center thrives and meet the, or rather deliver on the vision of our founder, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So let's dedicate all the merit that has come through your positive actions, through your involvement with the center's activities. So I'll just read out a dedication. So by virtue of all the merit accrued to all the center office bearers, may the Dharma prosper and may the well-being of all sentient beings be ensured. May the pure Dharma abide till samsara ends, and may all the pure upholders of the Dharma, in principle His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all the other noble gurus, have long lives, and may all their compassionate prayers be spontaneously realized. May the Bodhisattva aspirations of the supremely compassionate yogi, Kyabje Lama Thubten Zopa Rinpoche, presently displaying the form of one departed to the pure realms. He's of course returned, and His Holiness has confirmed that he's reincarnated. So may his reincarnation be quickly identified, and may all his wishes be thoroughly realized, and may his unmistaken reincarnation, after having returned swiftly, guide us and continue and fulfill the various activities from his previous life. May all those related to all the office bearers of the center swiftly obtain, or rather all those who departed, and there are some people associated with the center who departed in the last few months. So there's Subhashini and then Saket's father. So there are other people also associated with the center who have departed. So may they swiftly obtain the exalted state of the four bodies of complete enlightenment through a swift accumulation of wisdom and merit, and a swift purification of all their transgressions and negative karma. And may all the office bearers and all those dear to them, all their relatives and their friends, all those who are alive, benefit from a quick pacification of all their immediate obstacles in the form of poor health, economic difficulties, etc. And may they realize success in all their present and future activities. Namo Buddhaya. Okay, we'll stop here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Venerable.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you very much, and have a good day. See you again.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Venerable.
If you have questions, we can discuss the questions in the next session. We don't have time today, but you can make a note of your doubts and questions. We can discuss them later. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thanks.